Ready?
Yes, please.
Okay, this case here is another two-part case. This one involves a dog named Diesel. It's a pit bull, black and white, male, unaltered, about 3 years old, owned by Kevin Wilson, whose address we have down as the 8021 Ritchie Highway. That's where the incidences have occurred involving Diesel. The first incident that was brought to Animal Control's attention was on July 8th, 2014. In that incident, a juvenile received a severe facial bite as a result of a bite from Diesel. That was a family friend, came over to the house. When she walked in the door, it was reported to us that Diesel jumped up and bit her in the face. She did receive 7 sutures, both inside and outside of her mouth. And no, this is the family friend, we didn't get an official statement from her, so they were reluctant to send in the statement. However, it was investigated by Animal Control. During that incident, we were unable to close out as protocol. We were unable to impound the dog because it was reported to us 2 separate instances of 2 different addresses on Poteet Street in Baltimore City that the dog resided at. We partnered with Baltimore City Animal Control to have them go out to do those addresses so we can at least close out our health check on the dog. Every time they went out to the addresses given, one was an invalid address, the other was a valid address, but it was reported that nobody by Mr. Kevin Wilson's name lived there. So that ended up getting relinquished to the health department to close out because we weren't able to, we didn't have the cooperation on that one. This incident here was reported on December 28th of 2014. The victim sitting to my right, Mr. Thomas Jordan, was outside in his yard. He can give you more details. But basically, he was outside, saw 2 dogs, the pit bull Diesel, as well as a little Jack Russell Terrier at large, at which time he says the pit bull just all of a sudden took off at him and lunged at his face. He did block the dog from biting his face, which he got a wound on his hand, which the pictures of that are in the file for you. As well as once he was knocked down to the ground, Diesel grabbed onto his leg and he got a significant wound on his leg from the bite. Police were called out to that because it was on a Sunday, so Animal Control was not on duty. Police responded out. Were unable to locate the dog at that time, but in speaking to Mr. Jordan, narrowed down where the dog came from. We did communicate with them, advise them of the need for the dog to be impounded. I was again told the dog was on Poteet Street, was not at the location. Through my investigation, I spoke to a couple neighbors who said that they've still seen the dog on the residence. I had neighbors, that come forward to me speaking of prior, information that they had been reported about the dog being aggressive. And so I went to the full extent. I ended up having to write up a search warrant to remove the dog from their property. Went out there with county police. They did cooperate. Once I advised them I had the search warrant, they did cooperate, gave the dog to me. I impounded the dog. At that time, they still are swearing the dog wasn't on the property at the time this incident happened. All the witnesses that are here now, I have not got a single statement from any of them after multiple requests. Mr. Jordan did come in and identify the dog. I had him walk through the gallery. I did not. I took him on the sides that had no name cards. Took him down to all the the sides. I told him to look at every single dog. When he stepped in front of Diesel, he pretty much froze in his steps and said, "That's the dog right there." Again, Mr. Jordan, submitted a statement. I do take that back. I saw someone raise their hand over there or whatever, but I did speak with the one witness that's over here, Herbert Carter. I did speak with him on the phone, and I did speak with witness on the phone, but as our files want the written statements, and I was unable to get any written statements from anybody in regards to it. So that's why we did a dangerous order was going to be issued at the severe facial bite to the juvenile. It wasn't because the dog was reported as being out of county and we never saw the dog, could not locate the dog again. Now that the dog came back into our custody and was involved again at large and everything, it's a potentially dangerous because from the first incident we were at least issuing them a warning letter that the dog should not return to Anne Arundel County. That's why since Mr. Jordan's wounds weren't severe bites, he didn't receive stitches or anything, he did get a potentially dangerous order. And again, the owners are contesting the fact that Diesel was even on the property. I have gotten multiple statements. First, he wasn't on the property. Now he was there, but only to a certain time. One witness I spoke to said that he did realize Diesel was missing for part of the time. He wasn't there, and then he came back. Again, the fluctuations in the story. So that's why we're here today. They're appealing the fact that Diesel was on the property and was the dog involved.
Is Diesel currently here at?
Diesel is currently in our custody.
Okay.
Yes.
Hear them first.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just walked around in my backyard to put my Christmas tree in my backyard and walked up my driveway and spotted the dog in the driveway next door. As soon as I seen the dog, he attacked. I mean, that's about all I can say. I mean, there was no growl, no nothing. He just ran, jumped. I caught him in the air up here. He bit me in the palm of my hand, bit me in my finger, knocked me to the ground, grabbed my left leg, tried to rip my left leg off. When he ripped my pants, I kicked him. He let go, jumped up on my wall, stood there, looked at me. I got up, went in my backyard, into my fence, and up my back steps to stay away from him because I didn't want to get attacked again, and went in the house and called the police. But the biggest thing is I got grandchildren at my house all the time. If it had been my 3-year-old grandson or my 86-year-old mother, they would not have had a chance. That dog, there was no warning, there was no growl, there was nothing. He just attacked. And I mean, I actually caught the dog this high in the air, and I got cancer, and I've been going through chemo, so I'm not the strongest. And he took me to the ground like I was nothing. So,
Had you ever seen the dog before?
yes, I have.
Okay.
I've seen that dog and the white dog running together, not loose, but with the owners walking them around the neighborhood. That's kind of how I knew whose dog it was. And when I told the police with the dog that it was a white Jack Russell and a black pit bull, they knew right who I was talking about.
Okay.
I didn't have to say it was the house up there or nothing. They knew right what house to go to. That's about all I have to say.
All right.
Any further questions for the complainants? Okay. We'll hear from you and then from
Oh,
your,
yes, ma'am. Okay, first I would like to say, there was an incident with Diesel with a family friend. It was not a bite. She came to the house and Diesel was excited to see her. As she bent down to pet him, he was jumping up, on her as like affection. And his head, I'm sure everybody in animal control knows that these pit bulls have very hard heads. His head hit her in the jaw and her teeth went through her mouth. He did not bite her. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today because she just had a brand new baby. That was an incident, and the reason why they couldn't find the dog is because not only did they take over a month to come to my house about the situation, that dog doesn't live at my house. It is my fiance's dog. He comes on the weekends sometimes. Sometimes Kevin will go to the doctor's and he'll bring him there for us to watch. Everyone that comes to my house and all of my family know I have 5 children in my house, my 5-year-old granddaughter and children on up. The dog is not aggressive. The day that he was supposed to have bitten Mr. Jordan, he was not even at my residence, and I can recall the day very clearly. I had a lot of people there. It was the Sunday after Christmas. The kids were on break. There were friends, there were family, and there's also neighbors. It was warm that day. It was about 58 degrees. So they were all outside playing, okay? My landlord is here as well to attest to the fact that he doesn't even like pit bulls. And when he came to my property, I was outside with Diesel because we only let him go out with adults. He does not get to go out with the children, and if he's out of the yard, he is leashed, as you heard from the plaintiff himself. Therefore, I know for a fact, because he wasn't there, that he didn't bite this gentleman. I do have witness here that will tell you that Diesel was at my house for part of that day. Kevin and I gotten into an argument. He had to leave anyway because he had a doctor's appointment that next Monday. Instead of him leaving when he was going to leave, he left somewhere between 11 and 12 in the afternoon. I don't know what time the incident was reported, but I can tell you it took animal control all the way until the 12th of January to knock on my door and notify us that Diesel supposedly bit someone on that day. I did explain that Diesel wasn't there for that whole day when I talked to Mrs. Swartzwelder. I'm sorry, did I say your name correctly? Okay. When they did come back, they left a message with my son Michael and said that he had bitten someone. We called the next day. Kevin came to my house the next day without the dog. We called to find out what was going on. and she asked us to bring him in. I do not have a car at this time, and I did state that to her. I don't have a car to bring him, and I don't know when Kevin will be here to bring him, but I'm going to let him know. So I talked to some of the other witnesses that are here, and they do recall that day. It was a very nice day. They were outside playing football with the children, and we are under oath again. The dog wasn't there to have bitten the neighbor.
First of all, there are a few more black and white dogs in her neighborhood. That day, I know for a fact that, like he said, the police were well aware of where we lived at, for the simple fact that me and her had a little disagreement, and the police were called that day, and like I told them at the time, hey, I'm leaving. I packed my dog in his bowls, and we left. I went home, my roommate was there. At the time when I talked to one of the other gentlemen, it was another gentleman that came to talk to me about Diesel one time. And Diesel was not there at the time. And I let him know. At the time I was living on Pulte Street. Some things that went on there that I had to move. And then I moved in with my buddy and his mom. So I know for a fact that my dog was not there. And my dog is not aggressive. He's been here for a while, and I'm pretty sure Miss, what's her name? Swartzwelder can tell you. You can go into that cage right now, and that dog is not going to growl. He's not going to bite. I did not raise him that way because I have kids. He doesn't fight with other dogs. And like the gentleman said, every time we have him, he's leashed. And I had a little funny feeling that something was going to go on because my daughter and her boyfriend, which is here, one time was walking the dog, 18 years old. They went down by his house, and I guess the dog kicked his leg up in the gentleman's yard, and he came to the door and told my kids to get that dog out of his.
He cussed at them.
Cussed at them and told them to get him out of the yard. And it's funny, after that, all of a sudden, he's supposed to have bit the man. The day that he said the police were supposed to have came to the house, they didn't.
No one
because
came.
we were there doing work, painting and everything. My landlord comes around, my fiance's landlord comes around, maybe every 6 months to a year, whatever. He can walk up on that dog, and that dog will smell him, wag his tail, and go about his business. The dog is not aggressive. I know he didn't bite anyone. And we make it a point that if he has to go out in the yard to do his business, an adult takes him out. The kids are not allowed to walk him or anything like that. We have to have an adult with him at all times. That's something that we agreed on totally. Now, my little Jack Russell, now if he said that Jack Russell bit him, hey, I would believe it. Because she gets scared and she might nibble on you. But she's not throwing nothing to the ground or doing none of that. And Diesel, if he had trash or cans or anything like that, he'd have stomped his feet. Diesel would have took off running.
Absolutely.
But we make it a fact that he does not get out the house by himself. He's not the type of dog that walks around the neighborhood. He doesn't leave the fence. He doesn't do anything. We do not leave that dog alone.
And can I bring up one more fact? Mr. Jordan has 3 very aggressive dogs in his house. I did, in conversation with Mrs. Swartzwelder, explain to her that, I just felt as though if my dog did get out, which I know he didn't, well, I'm not my dog, Kevin's dog, if he would have gotten out that day, there's no way he would have went down there around those barking aggressive dogs. I think that she will tell you he is in that jail, in that pen, and he's not even eating. He pretty much stays in the back because of all the other barking aggressive dogs that he's around. And I just think it's very unfair that someone could say, that dog bit me. Well, I can identify every dog in my neighborhood as well. And, you know, I had an incident at my house probably 14 years ago where I had a friend bring a dog over and the two dogs got in a fight, and trying to break them up, there was a bite. So what's to say that, you know, maybe one of his dogs didn't accidentally bite him while he was breaking them up? I just, you know, I really just want to make the point clear that the dog was not at my house that day.
And the incident my daughter had with, you know, I'm not trying to throw fingers at him or anything, but one time one of his dogs got loose and chased my kids.
What
When
time?
they were with you, what's the little kid's
What
name?
time do you recall Kevin bringing the dog home
He
on that
he
day?
came home like about 3 p.m. and he said they've been arguing. He brought the dog home. So he couldn't have been there all day with the dog. Because he came to the
By
house.
the time I went out, I stopped, I got dog food, I grabbed something to eat,
He came to the house with the
and
dog.
came to the house. So I rode around a little bit, and by the time I got home, it was maybe
And then I have one other point that I'd like to make, and then we can try to wrap this up, because I know it's other people. My landlord does not come around that often. And that very morning, he had shown up to talk to us about some work that we were doing to the house or whatever. And that's exactly why Kevin was there, helping me to do some painting and other things, and we had a lot of family. So he showed up that morning, and I was outside with Diesel, because he was using the bathroom. And when Mr. Chopper pulled in my driveway, which I live directly on Ritchie Highway, Kellington is to the right of my house. Mr. Chopper pulled in my driveway, and Diesel does not know him because he doesn't come around, you know, very often. And when he pulled in the driveway, I was standing on the porch, and he came up the driveway. He doesn't like pit bulls, and Diesel went up to him and wagged his tail. He didn't jump on him. He wasn't aggressive, and he was actually in my yard, which, you know, you would think that if there was an aggressive dog that was going to be biting people, he would have jumped on my landlord and probably have bitten him if he was that aggressive. And, not, you know, I wouldn't have that type of dog around my children or my granddaughter.
And that's one of the reasons why we don't leave none of the dogs attended, because we did in the future, in the past, we lost a dog on Ritchie Highway.
And someone stole one out of our yard.
And someone stole one,
Miss-
so we make it a point to make sure they're watched.
Mr. Carter, did you not call and give a statement over the phone? Michael, did you call and give a statement over the phone? Okay.
I was told, since I gave a statement over the phone.
That you didn't
not
have
not
to send
bring
anything in?
them not to-
Well, that's what, I'm just asking, I just want to get that clear.
That's why.
Because they didn't have access to email, so I made the notes and I said, that's the only person who, and then when I finally called them to discuss things, their children happened to be present, and that's why they put them on the phone once I had called to reach out to them in regards to that.
Well, my daughter's not here because she's in school. I didn't know we would be doing this at like 3 or 3:30, or she could have been here.
Had to work.
Right, we have a witness that has
he been
pictures
aggressive?
of the
We don't
dogs
evaluate them when
in
they're
the
here
neighborhood.
at all.
But does he?
Well,
seem
her
to
and I
be
had a
aggressive.
conversation, and she
He's
said
not the
that,
ones throwing himself at the front of the cage, but
Right.
that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
but I mean,
Like I said, we don't evaluate them on temperament here.
well, during our conversation, she did mention that he doesn't seem to be aggressive, and that's what she might write in her report. So I just, wanted to bring that up as well. But the fact of the matter is, whether the dog is aggressive or not, the fact of the matter is, that dog was not at my property on that day. I don't know what time it was reported. There was no officer that came to my house and said he did anything to anybody. And no one came to my house until January the 12th to notify us that that dog supposedly bit someone.
That's the first we
And-
known of it.
My son was home by himself, and whoever came to my door, Diesel wasn't there that day because he doesn't live there. They would have clearly heard him barking. They would have been able to take him that day if he was there, but they couldn't because he wasn't there. So that's when they had, she said we could bring him in. I don't have a vehicle. I couldn't get him in here. Then they came to my house to get him, and Kevin happened to be there that day, and we
That's
gave
why I
him
brought
over.
him out. But when I brought him out on the leash, it was
So-
a cop on the step, and he didn't go at that cop.
So what you're saying is that there's no way that Diesel could have bit Mr. Jordan because Diesel wasn't even in the county
Yeah, I
on
swear
that
on
day?
my kids.
Okay,
Correct.
no, I'm saying that's, you're under oath, that's what
That's-
you're
that's
He's
saying.
not
And-
there. I'm
and-
sorry that happened to him.
And so am I.
but
I
that
am.
I understand,
was not my
but,
dog.
but that's essentially what you're saying.
Yes,
is
sir.
that Can't be Diesel because Diesel was.
Diesel wasn't there.
Wasn't
I don't
even
know
in the
what
county.
time he reported he put his trash out and got bit, but I knew for a fact that between 11 and 12, Kevin left my house. We got into an argument.
Where was Diesel at this point?
Diesel went home with Kevin.
That was me.
Okay.
He went
So-
home with Kevin. I don't know what
Well,
Kevin did in the
Can I hold you
meantime.
at that point?
Sure.
Kevin, you left at 11?
It was between,
I'm
I'm
just-
not exactly what time it was.
What date was that?
On the 28th of December, it was a Sunday. It was probably 58 degrees
Okay, so
outside.
Diesel was at your house on the 28th
He
of
was in the
December.
morning, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes, he was.
All right, I just, so he
We're not trying to
was
say he
at your
wasn't.
house on the 28th.
Yes.
And
Okay.
early in the morning, yes.
And like he said, we always have him on the leash.